In this video I'm going to show you how you can make better decisions when lure fishing for trout this winter. What's up guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Rhys and I make fly fishing videos and tutorials that will help you catch more fish. So if this is your first time here and you want to learn more, please press the red subscribe button and smash the bell so that you don't miss out on future content. Okay, so we're looking at lure fly fishing. Now some of you are probably thinking, Rhys, do we really need a video on lure fishing? It's simple. All you need to do is put a sinking line on, a big cat's whisker and pull it past some fish and you'll catch fish. Well, if I'm honest, I think there's more to it than that. And I believe if you really think about lure fishing, you'll be surprised at how well you can increase your chances of fishing in winter. So I've broken this down into 5 easy to manage sections. We've got the why, we've got the conditions, we've got the retrieves, the leader and the flies. So let's start off with why. Why do we fish lures? Well, the majority of time there's 2 outcomes for that. Either we're trying to imitate something in the water that the fish are feeding on, such as fry, or we're just simply trying to aggravate the fish and hone in on its predatory instinct in order to take the fly. And now we move on to conditions. So this arguably is the most important part in my eyes. So time of day, why is it important? Well, if there's a fish in front of you and you're the first person to cast at that fish, the chances of that fish taking your fly is 10 times more likely than it is later on in the day when everybody else has cast at it. So, if that fish has seen 1 cat's whisker, 2 damsels, a bunny leech, a snake and 2 blobs, do you think that the 9th fly it sees that day is miraculously going to be the one, especially if it's similar to those flies? More than likely not. That is why it pays to fish as early as you can. Similarly, when we get into the dog days of winter, when it's very cold in the morning and very cold in the afternoon, maybe at 1 o'clock when the day is at its warmest is when the fish will switch on and be willing to chase. And it might be at that point that the most interest comes to your flies. So for me personally, time of day, I'm looking at first thing in the morning and then the warmest part of the day thereafter. Okay, secondly, weather. So let's run through 2 hypothetical scenarios and we'll see what you think. So you've got an overcast windy day and you've got a bright sunny day. Which do you think is going to be the most effective? It's obviously going to be the overcast windy day. Why is that? Well, let's break it down. On an overcast day, you haven't got the sun shining at the fish's eyes. Similarly, on an overcast day, you may have wind. The more wind you have, the more chop you have in the water. The more chop you have in the water, the more oxygen that's going to be in the water. The more oxygen that's in the water, the more active the fish are going to be. And similarly, if you've got overcast and you've got wind, then the water temperature should on average be lower. The lower the water temperature, the more active the fish will be to an extent. Anything from 12 degrees or below is perfect for rainbow trout, and it's where you're going to get the most interest and activity from a fish. So with that, you begin to build the recipe for the right sort of ingredients to be fishing lures in. So then if you go back to a sunny day where it's flat calm, why is that bad? Well, think about it. The water is more than likely clear, so the fish can see every part of the fly. There's no wind, which means that there's less chop on the water, which means that there's less oxygen in the water, and the fish have got a bright sun pushing down on them. And obviously trout don't have eyelids, so the more sun we have in the water, the more likely it is to impact the fish's ability to see and chase the lure aggressively. Okay, and then water clarity. So let's break that down into 3 parts. We've got crystal clear water, we've got mid water, and we've got brown water. How do these 3 affect how you fish? So if you think about clear water, in clear water, the fish can see everything. It can often mean that the fish are very shy. If you're not fishing black hooks and you're fishing brass hooks, it will see the hook, and too much movement in that fly in clear water might be too much for the fish. In terms of clear water, you want to look at the more subtle colours. So things like browns, olives and clarets are tremendous in that kind of spectrum. And then we move on to mid-water. So that's where the water is carrying a bit of colour but completely fishable, and the fish can probably see for a few feet. In water like that, I've learned that that's probably the best type of water you want. There's enough clarity there that allows the fish to see the flies, but there's also that little tinge of murkiness which allows the fish to rest back and think, I'm safe here, I know my surroundings, and be more confident in its approach to chasing flies. So in that spectrum, what are you going to use? I'd normally stick with whites, pinks and blacks. So then we move on to coloured water. Coloured water is the bane of my existence. I hate it. But we live in the UK, majority of the fisheries we fish are fed by a river, so you've just got to learn to accept that that is going to be something you're going to be fishing in. So how do you approach that? Well, you've got to think of it like this. The fish can probably only see a couple of inches in front of it. So what use is it in those conditions pulling a lure as fast as you can? You want to fish as slow as you can, and you want to fish big. The two most prominent colours used in coloured water are black and yellow. Black creates one of the strongest silhouettes in coloured water, and yellow is just an all-round bright colour to use when it's that dark. Okay, and then retrieves. So there are 3 types of retrieve you can do when you're lure fishing. With each of them, you can mix it up within the retrieve. Number 1, figure of 8. Number 2, stripping. And number 3, roly-poly. Okay, and then leaders. So leader choice is very simple in this case. Majority of the time you're going to fish anything from £7 up to £12, depending on where you're fishing. And it's always going to be fluorocarbon. Now in terms of lengths, I'd recommend you fish with whatever you're comfortable with, but generally a good starting point is a 12-foot leader. So what lines do you use for this? This is going to depend largely on where you fish. But as a general rule, I've fished quite a lot of fisheries now in England, Wales and Scotland, and I'm rarely ever fishing deeper than 15 foot of water. So you're going to try and limit yourself to 3 lines for lure fishing. So in the deepest of waters and the coldest of days, you're going to switch to a dive 3. Line number 2 should be a fast glass. So this is where you're trying to target a water column that's perhaps 3 to 5 foot deep. And then finally, the last line you're going to need is a slow glass. Okay, and then flies. So I've got 3 patterns here that I want to show you that I'm confident will work all year round. This is basically a larger version lure of the Hulk. Now this lure was given to me by Ben Beckwith about a year ago. We fished Hayward's Farm together, and on that day I was fishing worms. Ben had this lure on, and on that day he wiggled out the bigger fish amongst the pile of fish we were having. So naturally I went home, tied a few of these, gave them a go, and they've proven to work. Okay, and then fly number 2. This is a cat's whisker. Everybody knows the cat's whisker. This particular version is basically a stocky bashing fly. If you look at it closely, I've used UV for the body, and I've put some gold fleck dubbing at the back. This pattern's worked quite well. Normally if you fish this quite slow on a fast glass, just inching it back, you'll pick up quite a few fish. And then finally I've got this. So this looks a bit different. It's a suspender rabbit. This was a pattern I saw being used up in the Hayley, gotta be about 8 years ago now. It's basically a red butt, again definite advantage, UV from David Downey, rabbit for the wing, and then a piece of foam at the front. So this was originally a booby, and how it was fished was they would put it on a floater on a 10-foot leader on the Hayley, and they would just inch it back, and you'd have the rainbows come up and just slam it from the top. So obviously because we can't fish boobies in competitions, I modified it slightly and put a suspender style foam on the front, and actually it changes the swimming action. Where now a booby would just swim straight and up and down depending on how you retrieved it, this, because of how it's tied, will dart left to right. And that again is just something small that makes my fly different to your fly, and it's that small adjustment which will make one fish decide to take the fly when it otherwise wouldn't have. And that is it. So if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. My name is Rhys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.